Did you grow up in Canada? Were you alive in the 90s? Did you love YTV? Yeah, you did.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? After a long, theatrically long, too long of an absence, you, me, and YTV is back. But will it be briefly during a full moon, or will we make a whole bunch of episodes? Only time will tell. But tonight, let's start this off right. I have a very important guest tonight. I have the one and only from Big Wolfing Campus, Danny Smith. Now, a few months ago, we did an episode, first time in a long time, with Dominic DeRosa, and he played Tim on Big Wolf and Campus, one of the big bullies, with a heart of gold in person. And to watch the show, I had to watch the show. Now, back in the day when this show first aired, I was a teenager who was already a teenager and liked my teen shows about pregnancy and and teenage misfortune. But I did notice that the show is on the air. I did check it out. I'm just like, this show's cool, but I think I'm a little more into werewolves that kill people. Now, with Dominic being on the show, I had to rewatch the show, and I'm just was spellbound by how good of a show this actually is. The comedic timing, the chemistry the cast had, the stories, the fun slew like in Buffy the Vampire Slayer with all the monsters coming in. It was such a really cool show, and as a result, Danny coming on, I watched even more episodes and fell in love with the show even more, and watched the season finale of season 3, and was just as heartbroken as everybody probably was back in the day. Now I'm about to bring him in, folks. Just to let you know, Danny and I are going to be talking, but if you comment through it and you have any questions, we're going to say post your questions and we will get to them, because Danny has told me he's an open book. Danny's a multi-talented person. He is not only a great actor, but he's also an artist. He is a musician. So we're going to be talking about, of course, acting, of course, the show, but we're going to be talking about music too. It's going to be a great night, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let me introduce, for the first time ever on You, Me, and YTV, let's welcome Danny Smith. How's it going, dude?
It's going good, Ryan. How are you, buddy?
Oh, dude, I am so happy you're here. And
Me too.
And I'm, like I said in the intro, I did not initially watch it because I was just, that 15, 16-year-old, like, oh, angst feeling. But all my friends, and I mean all my friends that are like a year younger than me, which, as we know, when you're a teenager, a 15 to a 16-year-old is like 5 years. A 13 to a 16-year-old is like 20 years.
Yes.
It's insane. So many of my friends that are beautiful, smart, amazing people all had the hots for you. It was really funny because when I started posting this, they're always like, "Oh my god, I was obsessed with him." So that's interesting to me, because initially on the show, Big Wolf and Campus, you have Brandon Quinn, who's a very a very good looking dude, and the character of Tommy, he, unlike Teen Wolf and other werewolf movies, it's more like, oh, I'm just this regular wallflower guy who becomes a wolf, and the wolf makes things happen. While on Big Wolf on Campus is like, I am awesome, I'm popular, I'm good looking, I turned into a werewolf, son of a bitch, this is really throwing things out of whack.
Yeah.
And who can I turn to but the school weirdo, in which I would never speak to in a Breakfast Club type of situation, where all of a sudden Emilio Estevez is hanging out with a strange goth girl. Like, I love that being a werewolf essentially makes Tommy a better person. And Merton J. Dingle is such a fascinating character in the way you played him. But I know enough about acting to know that I think you brought a lot of the character to of yourself into it, and the quirks, the way you spoke. I'm sure you weren't like coached into being big and being like that raw Jim Carrey energy. What was Merton Dingle like when you auditioned?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure it's very different.
There are so many things you said there. We could spend 3 hours dissecting each sentence you said. There's so many things to talk about. Let's do it, buddy.
Yeah.
First of all, shout out to your T-shirt, from YTV.
Oh yeah. Everybody out there, it's retrokid.ca. They make official licensed YTV shirts, and when I first saw them come on the market, my head exploded. So that was a few years ago. Yeah. So
I'll have to check that out. Yeah, because I have a connection to that show too. A show I did before Big Wolf was It's Alive for YTV.
Really?
Which was like a Saturday Night Live for kids, or that sort of age demographic. And so I got to play lots of different characters and sort of hone my comedic craft on that show and had a blast. So when I see your shirt, I'm like, I got to check out that website and see if they have an It's Alive shirt.
Yeah,
maybe, I mean, for sure.
Maybe, or if they haven't, make sure you suggest it to them. It would be really, really cool. There's so many comments already. By the way, Melissa Gill and Bernadette are big supporters of the show. They're lovely. Let's see, Melissa Gill saying, I'm about, oh yeah, we started like a hair late because Danny and I were talking about the Beatles.
Yeah.
and raw recordings and mistakes and stuff. And that's another thing about 90s television is it's full of mistakes. And I would just like to say that today, even though I've seen it before, I didn't realize how much I needed to see my friend Victoria Sanchez shoot lasers out of her eyes to turn people into stone.
Oh, it's a great episode.
Using 2000s television Canadian budget technology. And getting kicked through a wall by a guy with Canadian budget werewolf makeup.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good it's been an interesting day. But dude,
that's part of the charm too. That sort of early CGI, it's like the campy feel of the show. And Victoria's great. She's a mutual friend of ours. And she's a brilliant actress. I mean, if you watch that episode today, she's fantastic.
Awesome.
She's a beautiful soul. She did a great job. And I think that was the season 2 finale.
Yep.
Sort of
we got to talk about that season 2 finale because in season 3 everybody's hair grew like 5 times in length. It looked it looked like the peanut butter. It looked like the peanut butter solution, but it was supposed to be like 20 minutes later. And everyone's
oh right.
You guys even make a joke. They even made a joke about it. It's like your hair looks different. Yeah.
Yes.
And then moved on. Like it's pretty funny.
That's right. I think Brandon's hair got longer for sure. He had a very short haircut in that earlier season.
Yeah.
Peanut butter solution too. Great reference to early Canadian films.
Oh God, that movie is more scary than Friday the 13th in ways I cannot possibly explain. It's just so weird. But dude, so Big Wolf on Campus, you've already been acting, you're already in that other show. When you read Big Wolf on Campus, was the vibe already on the page? Because sometimes there's a growing period. They did the pilot for Power Rangers like 3 times before they actually got the vibe down. Was it already on the page, or did you bring a lot of was it kind of like an open canvas, if you will, considering you're an artist, where you could bring a lot of yourself and turn Merton Dingle into what he was?
Yeah, I guess a bit of both, because as an actor, and you're an actor as well, you read like 100 scripts a year, and maybe 4 of them resonate with you and you're like, I could do this. I mean, of course, as an actor, you think like you audition for a policeman or a fireman. Like if I were going out for that, I'd think I could do this. But in reality, like I wouldn't cast myself in those roles, But reading the Merton role on Big Wolf, I was like, this is me. This is for me. I saw a musicality in the cadence of his lines that I really connected with. His style of, setup and punchline I really connected with. And I really wanted this part.
Yeah.
So I auditioned in Toronto. It was just another audition. I put myself on tape because the show was shooting in Montreal, and sent that in. And I looked like this at that point. So I had like this strawberry shortcake, awful haircut, natural hair color, and these glasses. And when I got the call back, they said, dye your hair jet black, lose the glasses, we'll fly into Montreal.
Wow. So they wanted you to Superman. Got it.
Total Superman, blue, black hair. And it was so different for me. I was like, it was very unsettling. Like, oh my, like you feel weird. You're not in your own skin, right?
Yeah.
So that audition was strange. I'm standing there in front of like 20 or 30 people. We were at a hotel and like a ballroom, or not a ballroom. I mean, they weren't having 18th century cotillions in there or anything, but it was like, those big sort of event space rooms.
You auditioned for a large group of ghosts. Yes.
Yes. It was like something out of The Shining. And yeah, a large group of Simon Cowells just facing me, and I did my thing, and it went well. I got some laughs, and I was the first person cast on the show, and um, yeah, it was a dream come true. It was so I had that kind of look for a long time, and I sort of fashioned the hair after Sid Vicious, who I'm sure you know and are possibly a fan of.
There you go. There you go. I think that was
Yeah.
another reason why I didn't just jump on the show right away, because I had black spiky hair and spiky blonde hair, and then between John Carlo, who played George in Radioactive, and you, I'm just like, people with spike hair aren't stupid.
Yeah.
And and then I'd just go jump off something to impress people and just completely undo this claim that they're not stupid. So
Yeah.
anyway, but that's really cool, because I always thought back in the day, I'm like, oh, look at this Sid Vicious fan, and it turns out I was completely right. So
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I had a million kind of rock magazines. Like, this is pre-internet, really, right? So I used to have like tons of magazines, and just sort of looking through those, and I saw that image, and I was like, that could work, because I didn't want to just have like slicked back black hair, or
Yeah,
different
yeah.
things, and they were cool with it. I mean, they were cool with every choice I made. I was really lucky on that show. So when you ask, was it on the page or was it a blank canvas? It was on the page, in that I really related to the writing, which is Peter Knight was the creator. Peter Knight and Christopher Briggs created the show,
Yeah.
and their sensibilities were right in line with my own. But I got to bring anything I wanted to it. Like, originally, he was going to be a gloomier character, kind of hunched over and
Yeah, because
quiet and depressed.
when you're a high school goth, you think perpetual misery.
Yeah,
But maybe that's why all these babes I know are just like, oh man, I love that guy, because it was like you made goth fun and accessible.
yeah,
Instead of like, it's a club of my own, screw off. It's more like, I like cool stuff, but I want to be friends. Come on.
yeah. And that's an
Yeah.
interesting take, because usually the brooding guy gets the girls. The James Dean energy gets the girls.
Yeah.
Not this over the top, like this crazy spiky hair, which matched my energy. Gosh,
Yeah.
my laptop's gonna die in a second. Can I have a second to
Yeah,
grab
of
my
course.
cable? Can you talk? I'm so sorry.
No problem.
All right.
Okay, so everybody out there, as Danny's getting his laptop plugged, I'm just going to mute him just there to make sure that we don't hear the sounds. Anyway, so guys, right now this is amazing. I'm going to go through some of your comments right now. Man, it's been forever since I've been live. I love this. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of your questions, and if I miss any, but just want to say, and Danny, I'm sure you can hear this, but my friend Jenny Watson, who rules, is like, hi, on Big Wolf on Campus, or an episode where Merton makes Becky laugh while doing Mr. Crazy Points. Who came up with that? We're definitely going to ask that as the second he gets back on. The second, and if I don't, you can bite me and turn me into a creature of the night. Hey, what's going on, bud?
Sorry. So unprofessional, so unprepared.
You think I'm professional? Jeez.
Yeah.
All right. So, I just want to ask you one question, just because my friend Jenny Watson is so cool, and I don't understand what this is because I haven't seen this episode. So I'm going to say words, and I hope they make sense to you. Hi, I'm Big Wolf on Campus. Is there an episode where Merton makes Becky laugh while doing Mr. Crazy Pants? Who came up with that? What?
Right. Yeah. Mr. Crazy Pants.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, and she's on a park bench, and she's teary-eyed, and I sort of dance around doing my little Mr. Crazy Pants thing. I mean, that was in the script, of course, but
Yeah.
that's just black and white text on a page. I sort of brought this Ed Wynn voice to it, and that's a very old reference from like way before my time.
Oh yeah.
Look him up. People.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah, that was kind of a tender moment, because Becky, Natalie Vancier, who played my sister Becky, we always had this sort of sparring relationship, and she'd call me Freaker, and we'd go at each other. And this was the first time there was a tender moment between us, and I was a good big brother to her, and kind of a sweet moment.
Yeah. Well, that's and it's funny with Becky. It's just kind of like, there's this one episode where Tommy is in the beginning of it, is just like, oh, you got a zit? Oh, hey there, little girl. And it's and then she finds a genie, and she's like, hey, make this guy, but make this guy like me. But what's interesting is she's clearly probably like a 19-year-old actress or something, and she's very, very good looking. So it's just kind of like, If it's on the page, it happens. But in reality, we're all scratching our heads of like, okay, yeah,
Oh
it
yeah,
takes a genie to notice this. Okay,
yes,
yeah,
yes. A
yeah,
lot of suspension of disbelief on these shows, you know.
yeah.
Like we were 25 playing whatever it was, 18, right?
Is that why all the older brothers were like 45 years old and
Yes,
stuff to really make you guys
yes,
look younger?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But it's not as bad as it was, I think, in the 80s or the 70s. Like you watch these old movies and they are like 45 years old playing high school.
Yeah. Oh God, have you seen Grease?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah. It's like
of
it looks
course.
like they all finished filing their taxes and then just went to high school.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God. So
Yeah,
speaking of the 80s, I was today years young when I first saw the episode with Corey Haim.
yeah.
And what a cool, especially considering rest in peace, Corey. We won't get any more television episodes of anything out of him because unfortunately he's not with us anymore. But it's really cool that he came on your show to play
Yeah.
a vampire.
Yes.
Having famously fought them in the Lost Boys, and they even make tongue-in-cheek jokes. And the fact that he's playing himself is
That's the
actually
thing.
is actually
Yeah.
kind of interesting. Did you know who Corey Haim was, and were you excited to work as much as you did with him because you had the most scenes?
Oh, big time. Yeah, we were all excited about it, and I grew up watching those movies, even like License to Drive and Lucas and these films. And like you say, the funniest part was that he was playing himself. So in the universe of Big Wolf, Corey Haim, the actor, is a vampire. And then later Corey Feldman came on, so we got both Corey's sort of
Oh crap! I didn't see that one yet. I love Corey
yeah,
Feldman.
yeah, it's a
Okay.
good one. Check it out. It's like I guess near the end of season 3 or somewhere in season 3.
I watched all of season 2 like yesterday and this morning, and then started up on season 3. Realized I was like running out of time, so I just
Yeah.
jumped to the season finale. And we're going to talk a little bit about that season finale, but more Haim stuff. How was he? How was he on set? Was he like was he totally into the tongue and cheekness of playing himself and stuff? Was he all on board?
Yeah, yeah, he got it. Great attitude, no star ego. He was like he would hang out with us after hours and we'd be in Brandon's place, Brandon who played Tommy the Wolf. We'd be at his place till 5 in the morning and then go to set the next day for 6 a.m. Um, yeah, he was a good guy. And so was Feldman. They were both cool. They were in on the joke. They got it. They had a good time, I hope.
Yeah.
And yeah, those were the highlight guest stars for sure. I mean, everybody was great who's guest starred on the show, but those guys were huge highlights, like you say, because of Lost Boys and
Yeah.
these iconic films that
License to Drive and a bunch of like
License to Drive. Yeah.
it's crazy, like, from the outside looking in, I'm just like, as someone who's spent his entire life just trying to be someone that someone would stand in line for at a Comic-Con, let's say. It's
Yeah.
just like, here's these guys that really unfortunately passed before Comic-Con came into vogue so much. Because Corey
Yeah.
Haim would be like, he could walk into instead of being kind of like, oh yeah, that former childhood actor, what's he doing? In the world of Comic-Cons, he could go in there and just be completely embraced. It's like, oh,
Yes.
yeah, like all that work you did instead of comparatively not getting any work as a result of it. And also with Stranger Things, there's a celebration where people really bring people onto things for cameos and stuff. Like it's no longer looked down upon. It's more like
Yes.
a celebration. It's like, oh yes. So what Big Wolf was ahead of its time because what you guys did is when Stranger Things does now, not
Yeah.
not playing themselves, but just bringing Sean Astin and bringing some Goonies in, bringing like Carrie Elwes from a Princess Bride in, like
Yeah.
really celebrating the 80s by celebrating the 80s.
In
And I
everything they do on that show, like
yeah,
every the set design, the wardrobe, it's all referencing 80s stuff.
yeah. But
Um,
now everyone's celebrating pop punk from the 2000s and stuff. And
yeah.
I'm sure that Big Wolf is on a lot of people's minds because I was so not surprised, but I was delighted in the reaction of when we posted you were going to be on because people have a real soft spot for that show. And the thing about it is like it looks like there's a lot of punching. That's something I was watching. I'm just like, there's a lot of fighting in this show. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what? But not in the first episodes per se, but did you find that as it went on, you guys were more and more influenced by, let's say, the Buffy the Vampire Slayer craze? Because in season 2, all of a sudden, like Lori's there and she's like, I hope I'm getting her name right. She's there and she's kicking the crap out of everybody in every episode. Was that a result of the popularity of Buffy?
I don't know if I mean Buffy was a sort of shadow the whole time looming around this show, of course.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if it was a specific influence, but I know for season 2 they wanted a girl to join the Tommy Merton duo who was
Yeah.
in on the secret that he was a wolf and could kick ass,
Yeah.
physically and be a part of it.
And not be a
And
damsel in distress. Yeah.
and not be a damsel in distress. And I love that Merton, it was kind of an inside joke with everybody that Merton always like stayed out of the fights. And I loved it because when you're shooting a show or a film and there's a fight sequence, I mean, that could take a week or whatever to shoot a
Yeah.
2-minute sequence. And I didn't want to like learn how to fight and be in all these shots.
You're a lover, not a fighter.
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah.
So if you watch every episode, I'm just kind of on the side cheerleading, like go. So I would shoot all my stuff in 5 minutes and then be like, and go back to my dressing room and watch Goonies on VHS. So I got to avoid all of that. Yeah.
So we have a lot of questions here. I just want to say, hey Danny, did you and Brandon ever try to make each other laugh during the filming of the show?
Hello, Chicory Chick. Yes, of course. If you watch the show, like I have to go back and see it, but in my mind, every episode you can see us laughing. We laughed all the time, like every single day. I mean, it was a love fest on that shoot. We laughed every day. Like directors were fed up with us going, guys, come on, let's get one clean take, right?
Yeah.
We were so close, Brandon and I. We were like so close immediately upon meeting. And if you watch the show, I really think you can see the chemistry because like I'm climbing all over him the whole every scene and grabbing him and clinging to him. And we were just so tight.
Yeah.
Like we'd shoot all day, then hang out all night. And yeah, like we laughed all the time and just so unprofessional, but we were having fun. I mean, anytime, even if if we were in peril in a scene and the bad guys are going to get us, like we're laughing, like it's not even appropriate, but we can't help it.
Yeah.
Like, nobody makes me laugh like that guy. No, like if Brandon walked into this room right now, just seeing his face, I'm just giddy right now thinking of it. Like I love that guy.
Oh, that's so cool. So, speaking about first meeting, what was, as everybody was figuring things out, there's tones of the voice, there's mannerisms. Everyone's kind of like, Big Wolf on Campus becomes this soup that really works. But when you're finding the ingredients, was there any growing pains in that first episode where things had to be reshot, or there was crippling self-doubt? I don't know, a lot of things that happens when you're first doing something? Or was it that lightning in a bottle thing that just is just like that they always talk about? It's just like it just worked, we plugged in, started playing, and it happened.
Yeah, I think the only thing that changed was his wolf makeup, because in the first episode he's got this very elaborate setup, which took many hours to put on him and lots of glue, and Brandon was having allergic reactions to it and it was too much and it took too long to do. So in subsequent episodes through the duration of the series, they just simplified it and made it like sort of a campy look that matched the tone of the show anyways, as opposed to a scarier, more realistic werewolf look. So they made it just like Fu Manchu mustache and spiky hair and contacts, and that was it, But as far as myself personally and the acting style, like I hit the ground running. Like I just, if anything, just became, I felt confident when I started. And if anything, I just got more and more confident as the episodes happened.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was playtime. Like I've said before, like no one ever told me, no, you can't do that or tone it down or do this instead. They were just like very encouraging, and anything I wanted to do, I could do. So there's a ton of myself infused into that with every syllable of every line. Honestly, I had pre-planned the night or week before. It was like a musical. It was not a musical, but it was very musical dialogue or rhythmic, and the way I moved and the beats and the timing. And I mean, it's all pre-planned. Every single second of that show was something I wanted to do and stay in this rhythm of.
Well, I'm glad you talked about music and rhythm, because it's a great time to bring up that the very famous theme song was written, composed, and sung by you.
Yes.
How do you end up singing your own theme song?
I know, it's so weird, right?
Yeah.
Like I've said,
Well,
like
it's not weird. It's pretty
it
cool.
is
I don't
weird
know.
though. It's super cool, and it's the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. But it's weird. I've said before, like if Joey from Friends sang the theme song to Friends, it's just too meta or too weird, right?
I'd prefer Chandler to sing the song of
Yeah.
Friends because he'd probably sing lyrics like, "How do we afford these apartments in New York City?" And
Oh, for sure.
yeah,
That's all anything, especially from the '90s, like
yeah,
these romantic comedy films. These girls who are down on their luck and can't lost their job and don't have a boyfriend. They live in these palatial lofts with like this boho chic furniture, and I'm like, how do they afford this in Soho, Manhattan?
yeah. And you look outside, and it's pretty much just Vancouver. And
Yeah,
anyway,
like
so the song, man, how does it come to you? How do they approach you? They say, "We need a song." Danny, you sing the songs, don't you? Like, how does
they
that happen?
forced me under duress.
Yeah.
No, the Vancouver thing also makes me think of Rumble in the Bronx with Jackie Chan. Rumble in the Bronx, but you see like the Vancouver mountains in the background, and
I think the giant hovercraft going through the big water river that doesn't exist in New York probably takes you out of it a little bit.
oh, I love that you. Sorry,
That
go
and
ahead.
that and the terrible dubbing for that little kid.
Yeah,
No, no, it's my sister.
my
No.
cushion, my cushion.
Yeah. I'm just like, oh God,
Great
just
recall. I love that you know all those references.
hell yeah, buddy.
Right
So
on.
so we all try to write a song that lasts, but I heard the song literally every episode of season 2 and half of season 3 today, and it never got
Yeah.
old. It never got old. That is the talent. How does the song "A Big Wolf on Campus" exist?
Yes, to finally answer your question, after being sidetracked 8 times,
That's how we roll.
um, that's how we roll. I love it. Um, I was like Peter Knight, as I said, had created the show. We became fast friends immediately. He's like my favorite person on earth, the funniest, smartest dude ever. We totally clicked and connected. So I always had my guitar on, not on set, but in my trailer. Like, when I'm not shooting, I would go back there and just write songs or whatever, noodle around. And Peter would hang out in my trailer, as would everyone. It was my trailer and Brandon's trailer were like the party trailers. Like everyone was invited. It was always full of people. So, we were shooting the pilot and I just wrote this little ditty and I said, "Hey, Pete, check this out." So I played him this song and he said, "That's cool, man. Let's pitch it to producers." So we pitched it to the producers and they liked it. And we went to a recording studio, recorded it, and it somehow was chosen. And it's super cool. Like all my life bucket list things I've gotten to do is write a TV theme song.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
when I first heard it, and we speak honestly and all over the place on this show. When I first heard it, I was like, that's an interesting choice for a theme song about a werewolf show because I'm such a Halloween 365 type guy that I'm like, I would have made it sound more kooky, like an Adams Family or a Munsters, like, has some organs and no, like,
Yeah.
that type shit. But then I realized, I'm like, yeah, but then you make your show you make your world smaller because it is a high school first before it's a horror show. And if
Hmm.
you put too much emphasis on the horror than the high school part, and then if someone doesn't like horror, doesn't like Halloween, then they might not have jumped in. And I find that Big Wolf was a lot of people, like I said, all the babes that I know that love Merton, they are the type of people that love Halloween so much that they are Halloween 365 people. I have a
Yeah.
I have a Facebook of a group with some of them called the Fright Nights, and it's about how it's July and we're looking for pumpkin statues.
Yeah.
Yeah, help. But we all need that thing that forms our interests. As much as all the hardcore punkers that my age will be like, yeah, I listen to Exploited from day one. It's like, no. You listen to Green
Yeah.
Day, Doogie, and Blink-182 like everybody else. It is a
Yeah.
gateway drug. So the best part about Big Wolf is like I think it's people's enthusiasms for the horror genre. I think it was just enough. It was sweet enough to not scare anybody, but at the same time, just bring people in for the idea of, yeah, I want to watch a werewolf every week. and I hope he fights vampires, and I hope he fights mummies, and dead football players. Does anyone ever come up to you and kind of be like, "Yo, I'm a lifelong horror fan, and it all started with Big Wolf"?
Yes, I have gotten that. But that's a great analysis of the song and thinking, oh, I could have done like a Halloween style or, an Adams
I
Family.
used to own this town.
Yeah, the Monster Mash.
Yeah,
Or even like a John Carpenter synth kind of spooky thing.
yeah.
But that's a great analysis. I mean, you have to write that essay in the DVD booklet someday when this box set comes out. But I hadn't considered. We never considered making it a spooky song. Like Peter and I connected in every way, including music. Like we liked Weezer, we liked the Rentals, That Dog, Pavement, bands like that. And so it was just a song, like just to show him, hey, I wrote a song. It wasn't even real. I wasn't even really pitching it to really try for it to be the theme song. He and I both wrote songs constantly and still do. And we play each other everything we write. Like even if it's a verse or just a chorus, just like, hey, what do you think about this? And just for some reason that one stuck. And yeah, it's funny when you mentioned Green Day or Blink-182. It does kind of remind me of us listening to Weezer, Pinkerton, or albums like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like it felt like it represented like a high school show. And
Yeah.
Yeah. So an interesting thing, just as one songwriter to another, the second line is so interesting to me because you kind of like your notes, you go up in a way that usually happens about 20 seconds into a song, let's say. But or in the second verse when you're elaborating to give the audience something new. So it's kind of funny how compact this song is. Was it always this short originally, or did you have it a little longer?
Yeah, people want the full version, but that is the full version. So I knew it would have to be like 30 seconds or whatever it is. So it was
Mhm.
intentionally, scientifically crafted, alchemically crafted to get a bunch of ideas in there quickly.
Yeah.
Like you say, the going up. And there's some,
It's the backup vocal. That's the super high part. Like the right here, right now. Like it's high, dude. It's crazy when I listen to it. I'm like, wow. You don't
well,
usually hear that about 3 seconds into it. Okay.
right, yeah. I
Yeah,
know
yeah.
everything about Merton. It's like, okay, bring down the energy. We
Yeah,
get it.
yeah.
You're excited. You've had 12 Red Bulls. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the opening, there's sort of an opening chord, and
Hmm.
then we go into it. And that was inspired by a little secret for people listening is that's inspired by Hard Day's Night by the Beatles, how they kind of strike that chord first and then they go into the song. If people want to check out Hard Day's Night later, they can hear that. So that was my little secret inspiration for that. And I think there's even like a grammatical error in the lyrics. Like I say, I wish I could figure out I used to own this town, now it's all turned upside down. I wish I could figure out. Then he abandons that idea and says, do you think it's not I wish I could figure it out.
Yeah.
But like that never crossed my mind until episode 65. And I was like, oh wait, that kind of doesn't really make sense,
Dude, we live in a world where My Sharona was one of the biggest songs in the world, and no one asked a question. The same
Mm,
thing. What the hell is a Macarena? If you leaving out a single word syllable is going to make a song fall to pieces, come on, man. Like
hey Macarena,
let's
yeah,
be real.
exactly. Right.
We
Thank
live
you
in
for
we live in a world in modern pop culture. They don't even use English anymore when they're singing in English.
yeah.
It sounds half the people sounded like they use Google Translate to write their very English songs by very English songwriters because it's cool, yo.
Good point. And it's so much
Yeah,
mumble rap happening. You can just get
yeah,
away with saying nonsense and
yeah.
sell
The next,
40 million albums or 40 million Spotify listens or whatever the case may be.
yeah. Did you ever consider playing the song like on Spotify, like as a single? Have you ever played the song since? Like,
No,
really? Huh?
no, and
Is that out
yeah,
of fear? Because like, that would do really well, especially if you give your boy here an exclusive or something.
that could happen. It is out of fear. I don't want it to be some cursed thing where it summons demons from the Big Wolf universe or something. I don't know what's going to happen, but no, and yeah, like I was in a band I played 1,000 shows and I've never thought to play that. But yeah, maybe next time I come visit, we can do a little duet on it. Like you play guitar, right? Guitar or bass?
I play guitar and bass,
Right.
and I play drums better than most actors do. And that's what Dana Carvey said about it as a drummer. Like, in Wayne's World when he's doing the drum solo, he's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, as an actor, I guess I'm a great drummer, but with
Yeah.
real musicians, no, I'm not a great drummer. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I love the Beatles quote when they ask John, like, is Ringo the best drummer in the world? And John says, Ringo's not the best drummer in the Beatles.
Yeah, but I as a
I'm not
lifelong
saying I
fascination.
agree with that.
No, I
Yeah.
don't even I strongly disagree with that in a sense that it's kind of like Phil Rudd with AC/DC. Like he's doing the simple stuff, but when you really, really examine it, like you can't teach that kind of feel. And
Yeah.
someone more prolific will come in and do so much more. And what is great about what they do is gone. Like Tommy Ramone created a drumming style to literally make what Johnny and Dee Dee do make sense. It's like
Yeah.
hit the hi-hat like this to emulate what they're doing on guitar. No, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. So it makes one big sound. And drummers did not play like that prior to that.
Right.
So yeah, and he wasn't a drummer. He was a guitar player who like theoretically figured, oh, okay, well, this is how the drums should work in this band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially AC/DC and the Ramones, they're so, I mean, they're iconic, but it's simpler music. You're not playing Rush or Neil Peart. You're not a showy drummer. It should be simple to match the rest of the band. And Ringo's has such a signature style. Nobody plays like him. And you can hear a track and know that it's Ringo with his fills are so distinct, The way
Yeah.
he hits the ride cymbal is so distinct.
Yeah. Yeah, we could talk 7 hours just about like
Yeah.
Beatles examination. Like Ringo's a lefty that plays on a right kit, so his roles are different because his first hand.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. Kids, watch Get Back on Disney
Yeah.
Plus. It's crazy.
Yeah. It is crazy.
Yeah. All right. So Big Wolf, you have the song and you hear the song and all that. Yeah. Was it ever playing and you were that kind of guy? I guess I would be too, where it's just like, so you like that song, huh? I wrote it. I sang it. Or did you kind of or was there's this kind of like mystery behind it? Or were you the guy that told everybody and their dog that you played the song?
I clearly didn't tell everybody because this year, 2024, one of the actors from the show who shall remain nameless said, I guess I posted something about the song or I talked about it on a podcast, and he said, "You wrote that song and performed it?" Like, dude, yeah, we did a ton of episodes together. You didn't know that?
I didn't know that until Dominic DeRosa, who played Tim, told me a few months ago, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I always thought Merton Dingle was pretty cool, but now he's even cooler. And then there's this episode where you're kind of where Merton is trying to figure it out on a piano, and it gets very meta. So
Yes.
how did that come about?
I mean, that's Peter and I also. Like every night we finished shooting, Peter and I would hang out afterwards, or Brandon and I would hang out afterwards with Peter as well. But the first season, I lived in a condo, Peter lived below me, and we would meet every night in the stairwell with our two acoustic guitars and just jam and talk about what we wanted to do the next day. Like what sort of inside jokes we wanted to put in the show. Every episode has a ton of inside jokes and musical references. A lot of the episode titles are musical references. And so we had to be self-referential and talk about writing the song in that show, which I think I think that might be the end of season 2. I think Victoria Sanchez as Medusa ends season 2. And then there's a clip show, which is where I'm writing that song and kind of struggling with the lyrics and eventually sell that song to the Grim Reaper, Death, because he wants a soul. But I'm like, don't take a soul. And he's like, I'll take this song.
Nice.
And even in that show, I think we're saying like, I've been your sidekick for the better part of 2 seasons. Like it's very open about that this is a TV show, it's not real life. And,
well, I think the audience always kind of like loves that wink. But when I was watching it on YouTube, like catching up, I was like, I thought he was I thought he turned to stone. Like, what's going on here?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But we all got to remember what it was like to be on the edge of our seat like dependent completely on the television schedule and having to have a TV guide to even know said television schedule, and not
Yeah.
the instant gratification of finding out what happens months and months and months later within a matter of seconds, while people had to like wait. So
Yes.
so it's interesting that something happened to you to make the cliffhanger happen and not him. So it just goes to show, I think the audience was really embracing your character at that point, and you really had a place in their hearts. So to put you in some kind of danger would be a lot more would be a lot more appealing to them, and a lot more edge seating, if you will. Was that did you find that in season 2 your character was really being embraced, or like all the other shows I know, did you have no idea how well the show was doing because there was no social media?
Right, that's a big part of it too, especially the first season. We had no idea because it hadn't even aired on TV, let alone social media.
Yeah.
We're just shooting this show like in what felt like someone's basement. Like, is anyone ever going to see this? And then by the second season, we started, hearing that the show was doing well and people liked it. But yeah, there was no social media or anything. And as far as, making my character the second season cliffhanger, like what's going to happen to this guy, I mean, I don't know if it's about me being embraced. I would give props to the writers for taking it in a less obvious direction and not making Brandon the one who's trapped, or Tommy the one who's set in stone by evil Victoria Sanchez Medusa. But my character, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's a very sweet self-sacrificial thing you do, where
Right.
it would have been him turned to stone because you had just kissed this girl. But what's kind of funny is that nothing comes of that love triangle. Like years later,
Yeah.
Twilight would make 7 shitty books based
Yeah.
on a love triangle between a vampire, a dude, and a girl, and you guys kiss once, and it's seldomly brought up again. It kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is
Was
that
there
right?
any
I don't even
was
remember
there any
what.
initial plans in season 3 to continue this love story, or just like it was a one and done? We needed to make them feel guilty, and like that's it.
Yeah, I don't even know. I'd have to revisit season 3 to see, does that linger or does it just sort of we stop talking about it? I don't remember. But like we never knew. I didn't know in season 3 how I would, you know, be freed from the stone. Like I wasn't privy to that because we were gone for months, of course, while the writers were cooking in the writers' room, coming up with stuff.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Um, yeah. No, I'm just thinking about something which I don't know if I should talk about between those seasons, but
That is entirely your decision. It's
I know
live.
I do kind of want to talk about it, but maybe I shouldn't. But
It's live
um,
internet. It's live internet. That is your choice. I mean, the journalist in me, and naturally the curious person, wants to know. But at the same time, if you have any doubts, maybe keep thinking about it in the back of your head and say it a
yeah,
little later.
yeah,
Let's.
it's a good one, and it's nothing bad or it doesn't
No.
incriminate. It's very, very, very cool.
Hmm.
But maybe I'll do it on our next episode together, just in case.
There you go.
Yeah,
Sometimes, you know what, we could always record one, make our own clip show, and then you could really, I'll give
yeah,
you a final cut. You could be like, maybe. But we live in a world on the internet where if I farted 10 years ago, someone's gonna be like, remember when you crapped your pants?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So just
So
remind me later. It's about Saturday Night Live between
sweet.
season 2 and 3. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Okay, so I got to bring this up, even though he's not here right now because he's a very busy man. He has many podcasts, including Horror Movie Nights, Weird Algorithm about Weird Al, Chris, One Hit Wonder, One Hit Thunders. This guy Matt Kelly, really great dude, professional podcaster. He, we don't talk all the time because I'm busy, he's busy. But when I posted that you were coming on the show, I get this message. So I got to tell you this Big Wolf on Campus story. Haha. I love that show as a kid, specifically Merton. So in 8th grade, for my music class, we were told to create a musical as a final. It was literally supposed to be like write a script and pick a modern day song to be your musical numbers. I wrote a script called Misfits. Which was just a legit my fan fiction of Merton got to be a werewolf instead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, wrote original music and recorded it in a friend's basement studio. And I'm like, oh man, that's good, that's great. and he's just like, "Do you want to come on? You want to jump on and tell him the story?" And he's like, "How much I appreciate that. I have to politely decline." I considered that years ago. At this point, I generally only basically saying it's just like he's like saying it's one of the worst things to be committed to recording, and it's just awful. And even though Matt Kelly is a very talented musical person, you know, in 8th grade, we all have our growing pains. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you that Matt Kelly wrote a fictional musical about if Merton became the werewolf.
I
Uh,
love it, Matt Kelly. I have to hear it now, though. It's like someone saying they have a good story about between season 2 and 3 regarding SNL, and then they don't tell it. It's not fair. So
yeah,
Matt Kelly, I have to send me the files.
yeah.
Let's make a music video. Let's make it happen. Let's stage the theatrical production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that one thing about this show, and I'm looking through the comments, it's always wonderful just connecting with people, but just like, you know, us Canadians, we have like a really he's not even Canadian, dude. That's the cool thing about Big Wolf, and I'm glad I brought that up now, is that you had a very large fan base in the States. Now we like
Yeah.
to think that our shows only exist on YTV, but like Student Bodies, like, you know, it was a popular export. In fact, Radioactive was really popular in Australia. And my friend Zoe, now friend, but reached out to us years ago, basically saying she was a watcher of Radioactive in Australia. So, do you ever meet people from the States and around the world where you're just
Oh
like,
yeah.
huh, wow, you saw it? How?
Yes.
Were you standing on a roof with a coat hanger made of like metal, trying to get a
Tinfoil.
signal? Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, oddly I do. Like we were in Paris, we were at Versailles, which is this insanely historic place. And the kids were interested in talking about Big Wolf there. Like this little tour of children wanted to talk about Big Wolf. And I was like, do you know the history that's happened at this location? And it was just mind blowing that like I said, it feels like we're doing the show in our basement for nobody. And then people around the world. I mean, I get letters from around. Actually, I just met a girl from France. I had an art show, and she came to the show and said she sent me a letter 25 years ago, and I responded. And then she is now in Toronto, and she came to this art show, and we got to meet. So it was pretty cool. And I know the show plays around the world because the theme song, I still get residuals for that theme song, and it says all the countries it's playing in. So it's like a long list of countries that this show is airing in. And I get a kick out of hearing Merton's voice dubbed in, you know, Spanish or Japanese or whatever. It's pretty cool.
Melissa was on an episode. Everyone out there, if you don't know, my darling Melissa Gallianos, who played Morgan on Radioactive. Um, basically, I didn't see Radioactive back in the day, but you know, because I was like, you know, just watching Degrassi and other stuff where everyone gets pregnant and dies. So, but I met Melissa, and through her, like Ross Hall, Student Bodies, all these other people, I legitimately had someone being like, okay, well, you're with her, so you're not strange. Let's tell you our life story. That's okay. So that's how all this starts. Anyway, that being said, I've been with Melissa for 13 years this June. So in about 10 days, it'll be 13 years.
Wow.
And I just, for the first time today, finally found the episode of the Mystery Files of Shelby Woo she was on. But it is only dubbed in Spanish. So I don't know what she sounds like on the show. I saw what she is, what she does.
Yeah.
And I listened to who dubbed her, but for the first time ever, and it is only on YouTube. Every episode of Shelby Woo is on YouTube as long as it's dubbed in Spanish.
Oh, darn
Yeah.
it. The quest continues to find it.
The quest continues. But that's
Dude.
interesting to hear her dubbed. That's what made me think of that.
Yeah.
You're
I know. I
mentioning
wish I could see the recording sessions of the guy doing my voice in French or whatever, you know?
and being like, this guy, my God, he's exhausting. Like,
Yeah, I know. I hate this guy.
like
And-
the people who have to dub Robin Williams probably need to
Oh
be
my God.
dragged out in an ambulance afterwards based on the
Yes.
energy. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh man, I loved your performance, man. I really did. There was so much empathy and heart behind him, and I think that's a thing that I really liked about the show. I think if there was no Merton and the way you played him, I don't think the show would have worked, because you humanized Brandon, who's this, like, you know, or Tommy, who's just, kind of like jock douchebag guy.
Oh,
Had there been no Merton, he would have been a jock douchebag guy. And, the wolf kind of humbled him in a way. The wolf is kind of like an insecurity that he had never known until that point. The wolf essentially is puberty, right? Like, it's kind of like everything was cool, but then your voice cracks and then you break out into zits and you have this thing that happens to you once in a while and you're going through changes. And is this a phase I'm going through,
yeah,
as the song would say?
yeah.
But, I really loved how much they gave you to do when it came to how much you cared about people and how much you were looking for love and looking for a place to call your own. And meanwhile, the audience was just like, "Yo, Merton's the coolest dude ever," and I want to. I would love.
Oh, that.
I would love to be his friend. Is that kind of interesting to know that you probably like turned some people on to a more alternative culture, especially during that time?
Oh, for sure. That's the most common message I get is that people are like, "Oh, you kind of got me into this, or you made it okay that I was kind of into weird things, or um, whether it's like occult, vampire, witchcrafty things, or just being in a black cloud mood, or into weird, nerdy, phenomena." Uh, People are definitely like, you made me feel comfortable being into those kinds of things, which I hadn't expected to hear or at all. I was just playing a character and having fun and going nuts. And it was nice that it had these repercussions that were so positive. Because I know what it's like. I'm a fan of TV and movies too, right? And you do
Yeah.
relate to people on the screen, or musicians, you relate to them. And it's like, okay, cool. Like I'm not alone and other people feel this way. Because you always feel like you're the only person to have these thoughts.
Yeah.
And you're not. I mean, there are millions of people around the world who feel like that, and there's room for everybody. And life's too short to try to pretend to be something you're not. Like, dare to be different. Just enjoy who you are. And yeah,
Yeah, I realized I'm like, I think I am Merton. When I was watching the show, he's talking about like, don't say "Dude, Where's My Car" is your favorite movie. Say it's like Nosferatu from the 1930s. I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, and the one from the 1970s was really cool too with the German director. Anyway,
right.
yeah. Or the
I
way, or when he's portrayed in Shadow of the Vampire by William Dafoe. It's great, and I'm just like, thinking,
yes,
crap, I think I am Merton.
well, I
Yeah,
love it. And Willem Dafoe is coming back for the new Nosferatu, directed
yeah,
by Robert Eggers, which I'm very excited about.
yeah, ditto.
I
Um,
love the film The Lighthouse that Eggers did, and The Witch and The
uh,
Northman. But
Oh my god, he's doing Nosferatu?
yes,
Shit.
yes, it's gonna be
That's gonna
nuts.
be cool.
Yeah,
Especially considering it's based on a silent film. He'd be able to have a movie with barely any talking and still have it be true. That's really cool.
yeah.
Wow, you
He's one of few directors that who are relatively new, like three features under his belt.
yeah.
That I'm really excited to see what he does in the future. Like he's done great things already, and
I'm stu-
Nosferatu, yeah, mark your calendars. That's going to be a good one.
I'm stunned. Okay, so one of my favorite scenes that the brother did, Tommy's brother, like Tommy's 40-something-year-old brother, he he's always watching TV and he's always kind of referencing, he's like, hey, quiet down. Malcolm is in the middle of something.
yeah.
There's this one scene where Tommy's missing because he's taken by the werewolf cult, and they're like saying, "What happened?" And the brother gets very dramatic, and someone's bringing this up right now. I loved when Merlin and Tommy's brother cried because of Sarah Michelle Gellar, "Can't Be of
Yeah,
Angel." It's just great where he's just like, "I don't want to talk about last night," and you're like, "Oh my god, what happened?" It's just like she's just not with Angel anymore.
yeah.
And his performance was so damn good. Can you tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about that actor, like and
Oh
working with him?
yeah. Jack Mosshammer is a great guy. He was a Second City guy, if you know Second City.
Yeah, okay.
And I grew up on the TV show SCTV.
Of course.
And I love Martin Short, and I think you can see some of that in Merton also.
Absolutely. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Now it all makes sense.
big time. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
Jack was a performer for Second City in Toronto, and I'm sure he toured with that as well, doing improv, sketch comedy. Um, Very, very funny guy, and didn't get enough screen time, really. I mean, there's so many characters on the show, and we had to give each villain their screen time and develop their character within each episode. So Jack only got a little nugget here and there, but he made the most of it. And I mean, everybody on that show was very funny, by the way. Like Dom and Rob, as you mentioned, TNT, the bullies.
Yeah.
Um, we all had the same kind of comedic sensibilities too. Like when I talk about hanging out in my trailer at lunch or in between takes, we all really got along and had the same comedic sensibilities. There wasn't anybody who's like, oh, this guy is like kind of weird, or he's like, he doesn't get it. Like we all were like on top of each other, adding jokes and stuff. And it was a great cast. And Jack was just one of those guys who was great on there.
I completely agree. I think everybody was playing the same song, and that's when
Yeah.
big works. Or sometimes it works in Ace Ventura when only one guy's doing it and everybody else is going,
Yeah.
"What the hell's wrong with you?" This was like this was one of those things where it was like a cartoon brought to life and everybody was in on it, you know?
Well, especially like if you watch Brandon, Tommy in the beginning, he's a lot straighter. And as this series goes on into season 2 and 3, he's getting way more over the top. Like someone sent me a clip the other day that I'd forgotten about, but now it's like my new favorite thing from the show is I was like every episode almost, I have a transformation. I turn into a vampire, a caveman, 100-year-old man, a 500-pound man. And in this one, I was a caveman for some reason. I don't remember. And Tommy's the wolf. I'm the caveman. And we're having kind of a growl off. And I'm like, arr! And he's like, arr! And I go bigger, arr, arr! And then I stop and I'm like, eh, yodel, for no reason. Like, that's not even in the script. And then Brandon goes, hey, oh, yodel, and copies it. And then we go back to we resume fighting. And like, to my recollection, that wasn't in the script. It's just something stupid we wanted to do that for some reason made it into the show. And so Brandon, by that season, he's doing this huge over the top stuff, and I think he's hysterical. Like, yeah, he's very. I mean, he's this guy who was genetically blessed to look like Justin Bieber.
Yeah. Well, Justin Bieber would be lucky to look like Brandon Quinn.
That's right.
Yeah.
But he's hilarious. Like, yeah, he's a very, very funny guy on camera and off. Like when we hang out off camera, like I'm crying in hysterics to the point where Peter in our trio of friends is just like, guys, like, okay, like, guys, you're gonna wake the neighborhood, like. Yeah, I love those guys. I love those guys.
Isn't that the dream? Like you hear about so many shows where all the Laverne and Shirley, for a good example, or like even Three's Company, or all these shows where there's so much tension on set. Even the Sex and the City people by the end, like, all hated each other. It's like, like to go to work, like you're just half the people are miserable. They're just waiting to leave for a movie career. Like it seemed like from episode 1 to the last episode, you were a team, especially the last episode. And gosh darn it, that was such a bummer where the entire episode, the last episode, is Merton's gonna go to college. He's moving away. So you're like, oh, that makes sense. I know this is the last episode. I don't know if TV audiences knew if it was the last episode, but I sure did because the playlist was ending. And and I'm like, okay, I guess this is the last episode. Cool. All right, he's moving away. All right, well, that's a good ending. And then you show up in Tommy's dorm, and he's like, and thinking back on it, it was just the beginning. And I'm like, no, it's not. You bastards.
Yeah.
You are emotionally manipulative bastards. You just couldn't just move away. You had to dangle that carrot in front of these early 2000 teens. We just went through Y2K. How could you do that to these people?
And they dangled it in front of us as well. Like nobody knew.
Shit.
We were and including no one dangled anything. The writers, the actors, everybody wanted the show to come back and didn't know if it would. And I wish to God it came back. Of course, like us in college would have been an amazing series. And we were just getting going, like we were just hitting our stride. And I mean, think of all, like we reference a lot of horror films in the show. Like every episode, there's an ongoing joke about Merton will be like, this is exactly like what happened in The Exorcist. And Tommy's like, well, what happened? And I say, well, William Friedkin had done The French Connection. And at this point in his career, and he's like, no, in the movie, what happens in the movie? So I think of all the subsequent films that have come out, like, today we could be doing, this is just like, Jordan Peele's 2017 directorial debut, Get Out.
Yeah.
What happened? Well, Jordan Peele was known for comedy, but he.
I love that. That was so funny.
you know, and he surprised audiences by doing this horror film, which is now on the Mount Rushmore. But no, in the movie, Merton, what happened? So yeah, I wish the show could have gone on, and we didn't know. We waited with bated breath, and then we found out it's not happening. And then Brandon and I went to Florida and made a film with one of the Big Wolf directors, Carl Goldstein. And shout out to the directors on the show too. Eric Kenwell's like my favorite guy I've ever worked with. And Carl Goldstein's another great director. And so we went down to Florida and lived in a beach house together and shot a movie called The Bail, which was later changed to Fizzy Business. And it was almost like a kid's movie, but we find drugs on the beach. So it was like, who's the audience for this? So nobody bought the film, and it didn't ever air anywhere, unfortunately, because I mean, I have a copy on DVD, but I'd love for that to come out, of course.
That's like one of my favorite films, The Monster Squad, where it's like one of those, who's this for? Because it's kiddie enough where an adult would probably be like, oh, this is a kid's movie, but it's messed up and gory enough to be like, there's no way I'm letting my kid watch this. So good old 80s. Okay, so we got some really, really cool comments, and you know, a lot of Bieber,
let's check the chat.
A lot of there's nobody on. They don't. Brandon Bieber's got nothing on Brandon. A lot of those, but anyway, people. I can't scroll up all the way, so if you had some questions that I missed, make sure you ask them again. But okay, so Melissa Gill said something very cool. Oh yeah, totally resemble Samar Short. Okay, here it is. So here, Danny, you're an artist. Here's an idea: web comic, perhaps maybe some fan fiction of Big Wolf, you know, on the college campus.
I wish I could obtain the rights to the show, because I've been approached to do a graphic novel about Big Wolf.
Really?
And I would love to do it. I was approached to appear in a film as Merton, and these things I can't do. I'm legally like not allowed to do, which is such a bummer.
What the hell? What film was this?
I'll tell you off camera.
Okay, gotcha.
And it's probably in production now. They're shooting in New York. This is very recent.
Okay.
And same tone as, I mean, there are a few things. There have been many things actually, but I'm not allowed to do it. And it's such a bummer, because people will send me scripts and I get excited and I'm like, I can't do it, you know? And it's, I don't know, what can you do? My hands are tied, I guess.
Oh man, you're a man of mystery. Okay, so we have another one here that says, since Patrick McKenna was in an episode of season 2, does that mean that red green is technically part of Big Wolf lore?
Oh, Red Green, that's an old reference too. Yeah, the Red Green show with Stephen Smith, I think, right?
Yeah.
Also from her show Smith and Smith, I remember watching when I grew up. Yeah, why not? It's all part of the lore. It's all part of the extended universe, the EWOCEU.
I wanted to do this thing, like, the world make this happen, okay? Because I don't think I have the facilities, the budget, or the idea to do this. I wanted to like make a movie called High School Reunion Canada or something, and just everybody from Big Wolf, Student Bodies, Radioactive, Breaker High. Even though Gosling would probably show up for like a second or something, or Skype in saying, "Can't make it, guys." All these people from all these shows, just, it would be so interesting to have a high school reunion. And you know, instead of being in different, you know, they're in different classes. You know, they're at different tables, but each table would have, you know, the people catching up from respective shows, but they're not those characters, of course. I always thought that would be pretty interesting.
Or they could be too, with like sort of a cross-pollination of Breaker High with Student Bodies and all of that. Yeah, I mean, if people could do it. I mean, I'm sure we all would love to do something like that, but there are a million lawyers saying you can't. And so it's such a bummer that these projects lie dormant and we can never pursue them.
I don't understand this, because I've been involved with Student Bodies. I hosted their reunion in Toronto years ago, and there's such a hunger for reboots, but there's also a hunger just for distribution. It blows my mind. It's like, why aren't these episodes available in the highest quality that people can just enjoy and have some box art, have some special features. That's why Yumi and YTV exists, by the way, because there's like literally no special features or wiki pages to tell us what the hell happened.
Yeah.
I'm
And
like,
we're in the dark too. We don't even know. Are you afraid of the dark? Another shout out.
nice. What's
Yeah,
up,
we don't
Ross?
know either. Yeah, we all wish we could sit down and do commentary on every episode and have a couple drinks and point out all the secret things that are happening in the episodes and have a nice box set and just good quality. Like on YouTube, the quality is so blurry and so bad, as we've talked about before, that it's a bummer. I can't even watch my own show in good quality.
Yeah. This was an interesting one. I'm not sure if I had seen the episodes in which they do this, but at one point they changed Tommy's costume to a legit mask. Then they dropped it. Would you happen to know why? It always bugged me. I'm assuming this was allergy skin related things.
Yeah, and maybe they watched them out of order or something, because it was the first episode that he had the legit mask.
Mhm.
Excuse me, and then they went to the allergy skin thing,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
I never liked that. Nobody ever liked that first mask either. I mean, great job to the effects team, of course. I remember Twins effects, two twins, these guys in Montreal did a lot of the special effects, like transforming me into this 500-pound man and things like that. And they were excellent. And they almost did two. I'm not sure if they did the original wolf mask, but it was almost too good of a job. It was too scary, too, I don't know, just horrific. And they just said, this is a fun show. Let's just simplify it and, let Brandon's beautiful skin breathe.
it's so unfair, dude. It's so
Yeah.
unfair, dude.
Yeah.
But that's why I feel like always the Morton, never the Tommy. Like always always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I'm cool. I'm cool with being everybody's sidekick. That's cool. I walk between worlds. I've been Tommy some days, and I've been Merton the other day. So it's a good
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Someone was asking before, but I can't find a question right now, and apologies to the person who posted it. But you know what? It's a simple question. It's a great question. What is your favorite episode, or possibly top 3 if you don't want to pick your children?
Everybody asks that. I know it's such a tough question. How
Yeah.
can you answer that? It's like it all becomes just one. It's like a symphony, right? Like, how do you pick out? I
Well,
like
maybe
this one
maybe
solo
not the
part.
film, maybe not the filming of it, but the result, because I'm sure you've seen it all edited and together. Like when you watched it, you're like, oh, this looked like I thought it would. Because sometimes when you're filming and it's all put together, you're like, that's what the snake looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But even so, it's hard because you're living in the moment of shooting it, and you're thinking about the next 3 episodes you're going to shoot, and it airs, and you watch it for 5 seconds, go, oh, cool, cool, great, and then you move on, and then
Oh, because you're not
you
a
don't
total
want to go.
narcissist that studies yourself. It's like, oh,
Yeah, like
okay.
I've never gone back and watched the whole thing again. I've seen clips and checked
Oh.
out episodes. I've never done that. And maybe if we had a nice box set, I would. But I like people who love the show know it so much better than I do. Unless I'm watching it again, I'm reminded of things. Like for some reason, I said recently on another podcast, like the voodoo episode was a fun one because I remember I got to do a lot of stuff that were my own ideas and had fun with it, and there were a lot of inside jokes in that one. I thought the Werewolf Syndicate was fun because there were 2. I think it was called the Manchurian Werewolf. There were 2 episodes. It was a 2-parter, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
And our budget was a bit bigger, so the sets looked better. And of course, the Corey Feldman episodes were highlights. And yeah, like I say, like the budget was getting better, and we could see the show looking better from the pilot episode, and so we were hoping for a 4th season. But I mean, there are little moments within each episode that are my favorite. Anything with Brandon and I, anything where I'm driving the hearse. I wish I had that hearse in real life.
Everybody was singing about the hearse, man. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone loves the hearse. And Merton had a coffin backpack, like a chains for straps and a leather coffin backpack. And everyone's like, do you have that? And I asked for it, and they said no. And now it's probably in a landfill in Kansas City or something. I don't know what happened.
A bunch of Ataris of ET, the game.
Exactly. Great reference. Great reference. Great reference. But I do have some props. Like I think maybe I mentioned the voodoo thing because I have the voodoo doll of Merton, and I have certain props from the show, so it reminds me of certain episodes. But yeah, like I think season 2 is probably the best season.
I thought it was great. You know what? It's funny you say that because I watched a majority of season 1 before talking to Dominic, and when I
Yeah.
was watching season 2, I'm like, I don't know if it's just me or the show seems better. Like it just seems everything seems to gel more. The effects seem to be less Looney Tunes and more. It just seemed to. It wasn't as jarring. You know, the Wolfman powers weren't all over the place. It was like, nope, I'm a wolf. I punch. I kick. No one seems to die. It's cool. And
Yeah, and we
well,
weren't replaying the same idea of, Rochelle Lefebvre in the first season who doesn't know he's a wolf and Tommy has to hide it.
mhm.
By second season, like it's out in the open. Let's go. We don't have to address that. And even some of the structural things in the first season, like there are some episodes where there are two villains that are not related, and they sort of scrap that and they really nailed down the structure of how to make this show work. And by then the audience is in on the inside jokes and they kind of know what to expect. And they feel like they're part of it too. And yeah, we just hit our stride in that second season, I think.
For sure. What was I gonna say? It's like, yeah, people ask about top episodes, and apologize. I just want to make sure I'm finding the right one. Okay, here we go. Jake Gunn, very, very, very cool guy. Jake Gunn, I love you, buddy. How cool is it to be in a big video store set for? Sorry, how cool was it to be on the big video store set on the big hit? With the prop for a taste of the golden spray. What?
Yeah.
Sometimes I say words like it's a teleprompter and to just
Yeah.
get baffled by the combination of them when I don't
Yes.
understand the context.
Like tripping forward downhill, like what
Like
is
like
happening?
Ron Burgundy, go like
Yeah.
use that classic saying, yeah, go F yourselves,
Yeah.
and having no idea that you just said it. But
that first Anchorman is great.
yeah, oh god, sorry, to everyone involved in the second Anchorman movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that first one is just a stunner.
Yeah, it's
Anyway,
really good.
so how cool was it to be
Yeah.
on the big video store set of the big hit with the prop for the taste of the golden spray?
And you're like, what is the taste of the golden spray?
Yeah, I'm like, am I being canceled? Like, what is this? Anyway,
Yeah, no, you're all good.
okay,
So the big hit was a film I did before Big Wolf. So
really,
before Big Wolf, I'd done a few films like The Big Hit with Mark Wahlberg and Lou Diamond Phillips.
damn son,
Damn kid. National Lampoon Senior Trip with Jeremy Renner and a bunch
I've
of
seen that one.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the best. That's a whole other podcast. That was an amazing experience. And
Tara Strong got her start in that movie too, I think. Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
And she was my roommate for a year after shooting too. And we had great adventures. A night with Nicolas Cage together that I'll never forget, which is one of my favorite experiences in my whole life. Yeah, so the big hit was I was working in a video store back when we had these things called video stores before the Netflix era and the internet
Before the
era.
dark times, before the Napster.
The Napster rapture. So I'm this video store guy, and the running joke is Mark Wahlberg has to return a video because it has to be returned on time, or he has to pay late fees. And so we shot in this huge set, but it looked like a 2-floor video store. And there was a huge, I guess you call them a stand up or stand out or a cutout, whatever it is, like an advertisement for a film called Taste the Golden Spray, which works its way into the plot somehow, but it's too intricate to get into right now. But and then there's this huge fight sequence with Mark Wahlberg and Lou Diamond Phillips, and I'm between the two of them, sort of looking back and forth, trying not to get beat up, but I do. And it culminates in the whole video store exploding, and I'm outside crying in front of it. And I mean, that was a wild shoot. It was like, at that point, I don't know, 5 a.m, it's time to blow up the video store. They did blow it up. Like, this is not CGI. I'm inches away from it, endangering myself, but it was worth it. And then I wrapped 5 minutes later and then went to go shoot like a PSA for an elementary school about like staying safe. So like I shot that wild experience all night and then shot this like little kids thing
Yeah,
hours
with
later.
shrapnel in your cheeks.
Shrapnel in my cheeks and DVD shards in my jaw, and yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, so here's another good one. Since we're talking about, of course, it's like sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, like we talk about an entire career, not just one show. Like the Big Wolf is just a small blip on the life of that is Danny Smith. But someone is I do want to talk to you about your music course, but this is a really interesting one because I love this show. But it's like, did you have a good time acting with Alan Richardson on Titans? And is there a unique story about how that role came about? The first season of Titans is I love it so much because I love Robin, and I always wanted Robin to kind of like do that,
Mhm.
throw a Robin Ninja Star in a dude's eye. I've always wanted to just see that, just be like, what happens when Robin's not like, wow, golly gosh,
Yeah,
Jillikers? Like, what happens? Give Robin his bow staff and like let him beat the crap out of people.
yeah.
What was it like working on Titans? That was shot in Toronto, right?
That was shot in Toronto. That was just a quick one. Like I didn't even, I wasn't part of like read throughs or anything like that. I just sort of, it was another audition. I got cast. It was in the dead of winter. It was freezing cold, even though I don't think there was snow on the ground at that point, but it was freezing cold.
It is Canada.
Yeah, people are wearing shorts in the scene. I was a bicycle cop. I got lucky. I got to wear pants. And my only, memory of that shoot was it was early morning and the sun was in my eyes. I was just like, my whole face was a clenched fist because I'm so white and pale like a ghost. I can't handle the sun. And I just remember being like, I can't even see, but I'm sort of saying my lines. Okay, thanks. And I mean, we shot that in 5 seconds and I left and it was just a quick thing. But I mean, everyone was nice. I don't really have any big stories from that shoot. It was just a quick morning of a shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, well,
Which a lot of things are like acting is like that. Like that Big Wolf was so great because you get, your 65 episodes, you're friends with the actors, you're friends with the crew, you're hanging out after hours, it becomes a little family. But most of an actor's career is hopping in for a day to another family, and you don't know anybody, and you're kind of like going through makeup and hair, and you're being polite, and you're not sure, and then you put on these strange clothes and say these strange lines, and then go home, and like, what was that?
yeah, yeah. Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. But at the same time, you hung out with Nick Cage enough to have a story. So that's
Oh,
you know.
dude. Like in a nutshell, we like Tara Strong, who was then
Mm,
Tara Sharondoff, and I lived together. Right after senior trip, Jeremy Renner encouraged me to move to LA, so I did. I stayed with him for a bit, and then I moved in with Tara. And Tara and I were at a bar called. Do you know LA very well? Have you been down there?
no, my experience in LA is very spotty. My dad's a martial artist. He used to go there a lot. We used to go there as family. I
Wow.
know, and then I went back when I was 20 something. So I know the Sunset Strip in the middle of the day. I know Elmo in front of the Chinese theater, and I know Disneyland, and I know Universal Studios, and whoever's house we stayed at. Beyond that, no, I don't know fuck all
Yeah,
about LA.
yeah. Stay away from Elmo in front of the Chinese theater. That guy's, not too
Oh, he was
reliable.
a total jerk, but so was the
Yeah.
one in Times Square. So
Yeah. That's
yeah,
part of the job requirement, I guess.
yeah,
Um, but in a nutshell, just because it's like one of my favorite things that ever happened to me was Tara and I went to a bar called Jones on Santa Monica. We used to go all the time. And it was across the street from a bar called the Formosa, which like we lived at that bar for a year. Like Jeremy and that crew used to go there at least once a week, literally for a year. And you'd see people like DiCaprio, hot off of Romeo and Juliet, and these kind of people hanging out there. And we were in Jones, and Nicolas Cage was there sitting in a booth. I haven't thought about this in a long time. It was like a semicircle booth. Nick Cage
yeah.
is in the middle. He's got a friend on each side. And, I was a huge fan of his film Vampire's Kiss. If you know that film, if you haven't seen it, please watch it. It's like way over the top comedy. That's the Nicolas Cage I love.
Yeah.
And this was circa leaving Las Vegas. Like this is 1994. So he hadn't even done The Rock or Con Air or any of these films yet. And I loved him. So we stood by his booth like the nerds that we are just to be in his orbit. and David Bowie was playing on the radio, Life, or the DJ was playing David Bowie, Life on Mars, and I was kind of singing along, and Nick Cage goes, "Ziggy Stardust, great album," and I said, "Yeah, I think it's from the album Hunky Dory," and he goes, "You're right. Have a seat." So I sat. It was me, his friend Nick Cage, his friend, and Tara. And we talked all night long. We closed that bar literally. We were the last 5 people in there. We were talking about Senior Trip, the film we shot. And I was like, oh man, I got to play this nerd. I'm always playing this like dorky guy. He's like, embrace it. That's the one you get to have fun with characters. And we were talking about Brando and acting and Vampire's Kiss and Moonstruck. And it was the greatest thing ever. And the friend who was talking to Tara all night, they hit it off and hung out a few more times later. And he told her that he and the other friend and Nick Cage went to Blockbuster to rent Senior Trip to see us in this movie, but it was rented out and they couldn't get it. But just hearing that was nuts. And then 6 months later, he wins the Oscar for Best Actor for Leaving Las Vegas. So yeah, that was incredible. We had cigars. We're smoking cigars in the bar, ordering drinks. I mean, it was a dream come true, dude. A dream come true. Yeah.
You've had a lot of dreams come true there, Dan.
Yes, I know. I'm lucky.
Yeah. Well, speaking of lucky, let's so many people are commenting, and they're commenting about, like, you know, quoting Vampire's Kiss and stuff. Everybody, this is very special, and this is why the show used to be, we'd talk on Skype, and you know, I'd edit the crap out of it, I put in all the clips, but everybody watching right now, I think, I've seen Big Wolf enough. When we reference something, you don't need it. We don't need a reminder clip force fed down your throat, especially with the availability on YouTube. Plus, it's a lot less work for me. But I will say, I love these tangents that no part of me thought this morning while watching all these episodes, am I going to talk to this dude about how he hung out with Nicolas Cage when he was on the cusp of superstardom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, same. I mean, we were talking about the Misfits earlier or different things. And yeah, someone just commented, Nicolas Cage reciting the alphabet in that movie will never get old. Dude, that's like probably my favorite scene not in cinema history, but it's one of my all-time favorite things is him reciting the alphabet. Please watch that. Ryan, if you haven't seen it, watch it tonight.
Vampire's Kiss?
Yes. It is amazing, dude. It is so funny to me.
We're watching it. We're watching the beginning of Vampire's Kiss, and this is what happens sometimes. Sometimes I fall asleep for what seems like a second. Like, literally, the blinds close and open immediately, but an hour and a half has passed. Yeah. And so this happens where Mel and I will be watching something, and I'll do this, and then the credits are going, and she'll be commenting on the entire movie. And she'll be like, so with Vampire's Kiss, I was like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, like he's on Z in the alphabet recitation at that point. Like, I missed the whole thing. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I know, but I got to check it out again. But yeah, Nicolas Cage.
Oh yeah, his performance is hysterical in that.
Yeah, he's done some really, really great Nicolas Cagey stuff, and now that he can go and do it, like now for years he's just kind of done whatever he wants, and he has like a lot of fun with it. But little known fact, ladies and gentlemen, Nicolas Cage was one of the biggest comic book fans in the world. And the Cage of Nicolas Cage, he named himself after Luke Cage, which is now famously a Marvel character that a Netflix show, but back in the 80s was not as common. And another fascinating thing about Nicolas Cage is that up until it was robbed from him, he had a an almost mint copy of Superman #1.
Yep.
That would have been worth potentially millions of dollars. And it's and there's a whole podcast and story about the mystery of how and why it was taken. Fascinating dude. But
he's already built a pyramid to be buried in.
Yeah.
He's got a crazy collection of things like Superman 1 or like a Tyrannosaurus Rex skull and a crazy collection of ephemera that we probably don't even know about.
Another fun fact that I learned when we did a Student Bodies little mini reunion is that Ryan Woolner auditioned for Merton as well.
Yes.
Yeah. He didn't get it, of course, and he's like, nobody could have played Merton like Danny could have. But it's interesting that he walked in there already with spiky black hair. And it makes me wonder, it's just like maybe they called you up. It's like, can you look more like Ryan Woolner?
I know. I know we need a cheaper, less expensive version of Ryan. He told me that years later that he
Yeah.
auditioned for it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Has anyone ever approached you to play Buddy Holly? Because I would totally cast you as Buddy Holly. You sing, you play guitar, you naturally have to wear glasses, and you just I don't know. Because
That would be my dream.
I
That'd be my
played Buddy
dream.
Holly in a play once, but I don't think I look like him.
I think
And
I could do it. I think I could
I,
do it.
I
I
think
got
you
the
do
big
great.
chompers. Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying because you have big chompers. I'm saying you have the musical talent to be able to pull it off. You ever see the Gary Busey Buddy Holly movie
Yes.
where it's Buddy Holly but angry?
Yeah. Yeah, he's all cantankerous and
Yeah, they're like, buddy, you have to go on stage. And he's just like, and I'm like, dude, Buddy Holly was not 5 Red Bulls in at all times.
yeah, I know, and don't ruin his legacy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. So I'm trying not to drop as many F bombs as I used to.
And
Okay,
I want to say just a quick shout out to the chat. Like I
sure.
know we skipped a lot of comments, but just know I'm reading everything you're writing. You're making me laugh. I'm seeing a lot of friends in here saying silly things, which I love. And I'm seeing all your comments, okay? Because I'm a guy who watches a ton of podcasts as well, and I comment a lot. And when mine goes by and I see them answer someone else, I'm like, oh man, they missed it. But just know I am seeing these comments, and they're definitely there's some great stuff in there.
And if I don't see your comments, it's because I'm blind and I'm like really trying to see everything. But I'm being so swept up in all these amazing stories. Like for instance, like the fact you even were roommates with Tara Strong, nevertheless. Like Tara Strong is
Yeah,
someone who's just like they said 30 years ago, you're going to be good looking forever,
yeah,
and you're never going to change. You're like going to be whiskey. You're going to get better looking with age, and you are going to have so much talent behind a microphone that
yes.
despite the fact that any camera would be lucky to even look at you, you will perform at a level of female voice acting that will put you on the Mount Rushmore of talent. Like her range is insane.
Her resume is insane, her voice acting resume is insane.
Yeah.
And she is perfect for that. Like when we lived together, all she wanted to do was voice Disney characters and sing the characters.
Wow.
She
Okay.
would, gambol around the house singing Disney songs and doing voices and pursuing acting. But later when she became most known for voice acting, I'm like, yes, of course. Like she's perfect for Powerpuff Girls and all these things, Harley Quinn and all these things. I'm so happy for her. I mean, she deserves every drop of fame. And we still check in briefly every once in a while. And I'll always love her. And if I saw her at a bar tonight, we'd hang out for 12 hours straight and laugh.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we have a year, years worth of great memories together. And yeah,
Yeah.
she's a cool girl.
Yeah, they made a well, I mean, come on, there's hundreds and hundreds of talented female voice actors. It's just that Tara's on another level. Like, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not looked in it, like it just her range between My Little Pony to Raven on Teen Titans Go and every tone and voice in between, and it's incredible that she was part of that team playing Batgirl of that incredible Batman the Animated Series, like in the early '90s.
Right.
So by you're making senior trip, she's already been acting for a long time,
Oh
It's
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, so there's so many beautiful comments, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to Tara Strong is a vampire. Yes, possibly
She is.
considering the lack of aging.
Right.
I love this one. Joey, this is a great one. Here's an interesting question. If you had to be on another show on YTV that wasn't Big Wolf, what would it be?
Another show on YTV that your uh-oh shirt is jumping out at me right now.
You want to be covered in slime. Gotcha.
Yes. Or like you can't do that on television.
That shirt's over there, actually. Yeah.
See, I got to check out that website where you get those shirts.
Retrokid.ca.
Yeah. What else is on? I mean, like I was on YTV. It doesn't necessarily mean I watched all those shows because I was probably older, right?
Well, there you go. If I was too old to watch Big Wolf, then you were definitely too old to be like, I wonder what the gang on Student Bodies is doing. Oh, Cody and Emily are breaking up again.
I know that's the thing,
Yeah.
But we were all friendly. Talk about cross-pollinating. Like Jamie Ellman and I were like best friends for many years.
The best.
He is the best, and I haven't. He's probably watching this saying, "You son of a bee," because I haven't spoken to him or a lot of people in many years because I sort of went down this other path. But I do love him, and I mean, we've spent a billion hours partying together, and we will reconnect at some point for sure. But yeah, Mick Perlis is kind of in the periphery, and all these people and on each other's shows, and just being living in Montreal together and shooting at the same time. We all kind of knew each other.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So maybe just for that sake of, even if you didn't watch the shows, would you be on a show? Just would you be on Student Body so you get to hang out with Mick and Jamie
Yeah,
for a day,
that would have been awesome.
and
Yes.
Ross, of course, and
But
Victoria.
of this is Victoria's episode right here. Shouts to Victoria, who's in
Yeah.
her ninja class right now.
Yeah, exactly. I was
Um,
like, explain.
yeah. But it would have been fun to do a crossover episode with us as our characters in each other's worlds.
Yeah.
Like Cody has to help Tommy. I'm over there doing this, and Ryan Gosling is just zooming in, saying, "I'm sorry I can't be there, guys. I'm doing the Fall Guy part 2 and sleeping on millions of dollars right now." But
Yeah. I
yeah,
gotta go be Ken.
yeah,
Oh yeah. So they're all saying that's it. We need a high school reunion, even if we have to crowdfund it. I don't care anymore.
I know.
A lot of the people, I can say a lot of the people, not everybody, but a lot of the people who are on these shows, they're so down to clown, and they're so kind, they're so nice, and they're so appreciative of the legacy. I think the problem is that some people are just kind of like, I want to say that I'm doing other things and I'm not just resting on the laurels that I was on something 20 years ago.
Mhm.
So, but the thing is, Danny, you are not at your social media. You're in the middle of being an artist right now. You are having showings. Can you tell everybody about your life as an artist and all the ass you're kicking in that world right now?
Oh, bless your heart. And quickly, just to talk about the first thing you said there,
Mm,
I think when you finish a project that some people know about, like if you finish Friends or a big series, you want to kind of distance yourself from that and prove yourself in other areas. And everyone wants to see you as the guy on Friends. And you're like, no, 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 I'm more than that. And you have those years where you try to prove other things. But then
mm.
with enough time, you embrace it. It's like William Shatner with Star Trek. I'm sure he hated talking about Captain Kirk all those times, following that series.
Yeah.
But now he's like, embrace it. And it's like, whatever, I'm Captain Kirk and let's have fun with it. Um, as far as the art goes, literally just today I was there's a Banksy exhibition coming to Toronto, and I'm going to be the artist in residence there. So I'll be painting pieces there and selling my art in the gift shop. So I was over there kind of setting up the studio for that. And I've been really lucky. Like I've done tons of work for like Budweiser Stage. I just did a huge like concert poster merchandise line for a big music festival happening in Nova Scotia called Live at the Lakes with, Jim Cuddy and all these musicians performing. And yeah, I mean, it's funny because I'm not really pursuing art, but I've been really lucky just perpetually working. Like I have a hotel show coming up at Hotel Victoria in August, this gorgeous hotel downtown Toronto. I have this beautiful room. So I'll be having a solo show there.
Yeah.
I have my stuff in galleries around the city. I mean, I tidied up here, but usually this place is covered in like paint and brushes and varnish and canvases. So yeah, I'm always doing everything. Like I'm writing songs just for fun. There's a musical sort of project I've written that is, I guess you'd say, in development hell, where I've had a million meetings about it and it sort of might happen. And I really hope it does happen because that would be the biggest thing I've ever done probably in my life. And I've already written and recorded all the music for it, and I would be directing it, and it would be a huge, amazing project. So I'm just kind of I'm too greedy. I can't sit still. I want to do a bit of everything. Like you, like you're an actor and a musician. We do all these things. So
Yeah, I'm a jack of all trades, but unfortunately a master of none.
I
But
say that too. Yeah.
but at the same time, I definitely cannot sit still. I don't think it is a gift in life to be like, oh, what am I gonna do this year? Well, maybe this. This feels
Yeah.
good. This feels good now. Let's do that.
Yeah.
So just to constantly being a little bit more like, even in music for the last few years, I wasn't in a full-time band anymore. I would play in a Christmas band that would play charity shows. And, from September, roughly, more like October, all the way into December, that's what we do. But the rest of the year, it's like, okay, it's video time. It's this, it's that, it's that.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I told myself I'm going to be this and it doesn't work, it would devastate me. But if I won't put it all in there, it can't be because it wasn't all encompassing, then it can't break my heart. Does that make any sense?
I relate 1,000%, 1,000%. It's almost like, trying to woo a woman. If you put all your eggs in that basket and try too hard and she doesn't reciprocate it, you're crushed. But if you're just kind of living your life and you're like, hey, if you want to join my life too, that'd be great. If not, that's okay too. It doesn't hurt, right? And you just kind of live your own life doing your thing.
Yeah, it's like I made so many mixtapes
Yeah.
based on this moment for it to create emo crying in the rain scenario. But meanwhile, it's like, turns out she doesn't like you. It's like, okay.
Right. I know. It's like the time I spent putting I Miss You by Blink-182 as the second song in because the first song had to be an attention grabber, and then she didn't even care. Like, nah, don't do any of that stuff. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
And our jobs as creatives are so unstable. So you do have to be, malleable and able to kind of hop from one thing to the next and just keep going. And, I think of it as like I'm living a life of retirement. I just kind of do what I want for a bit until that works. And then when that stops, I go over and do this for a bit. And
well, I think that's what originally, and everyone watching, they're like, why don't you do as much any episodes anymore? I'm like, because I did the thing where I made this show a mixtape that took like months to do, because I was just like, oh God. And then when the viewership, let's say someone filmed their cat crapping on the couch, gets like 1 million views, and then like something will get like 200 views, and it's like, what, I spent 30 hours. Yeah. But the fun part about that is like looking years and years and years later, when it's produced and when it was made well, you look back on it, you're like, well, at least if someone just stumbles onto YouTube and they want to know what the hell happened on X-Men the animated series, which by the way, everybody, X-Men 97 is doing great. And if you want to hear content related interviews, I interviewed a bunch of people from that show before it was cool again. Okay, for what it's worth. Yeah. So I have a question.
it's like do it for you. That's the thing I've learned too, is just do it for you. Because I'll spend literally 3 weeks on a piece of art from the moment I wake up till I go to bed at night, and then I wake up in the middle of the night and keep working on it for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And then I'll post it on Instagram and it'll get like 30 likes. I'm like, shit, man, like, really? And yet, Instagram is so strange because my stories get like 1,500 likes or views, 2,000 views, but the posts get like 30 likes. Something's weird in that algorithm, or I'm just being creeped by people. But
no, it is so weird. It's strange. And people can like and look at something and they'll acknowledge it and be like, oh, and then they won't like and they'll just move on. And I've had friends come up to me and it's like, yeah, so you're doing this and this and this. I'm like, you know about that?
Yeah.
There's no digital footprint that claims that you've seen this.
And I've gone through stories too where I just kind of bing, 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 bing. So, they're seeing that I'm seeing it, but I'm not necessarily going to their profile to like look for a photo and like it. So it makes sense. But I miss Instagram in the old days. When it first started, it was awesome. When it was just like more artistic photos or, someone like taking a picture of a interesting leaf or whatever. It wasn't this commercialized, sponsored thing,
I think Instagram is cool and it's nice to have a way to communicate, but we're also creating a world in which we need the validation of strangers to feel good about ourselves. And even as grown people, like you said, you post this, I post that, we're like, oh, it only got 30 likes. I guess that means it's not good.
Right.
But back in the day, if you had 30 people in a room looking at what you painted, you would be stoked. Here's 30 human beings who have birthdays, parents, things to do that chose to look at your stuff instead of doing something else. But digitally, it is not the same fulfillment. And here we are searching for this feeling, this end of A New Hope feeling where they put the medals on you and everyone's cheering because you blew up the Death Star. You're looking for that moment based on the validation of strangers. And
Yes.
I fear for the young people. I say as an old man that
Yeah.
if that's how you're developing your own self-esteem in the world, that you need the validation of strangers. We were taught when I was a kid, I'm sure you too, that you shouldn't seek out the validation of strangers and just be yourself. So it
Yes. I
how
know
does
we're
it work?
lucky. I love the New Hope analogy,
Thank you.
and we're lucky we had that, to be able to grow up in the era where just hanging out with friends, riding our bikes around the neighborhood, and all of that was fulfilling and fun and amazing.
Yeah.
Um, like to this day, if 500 people like something I put online, it's not as fulfilling as like my 4 buddies coming over and hanging out on my patio and just talking about music. Like, it's still that human interaction is for sure what we're social animals, right? Humans are social animals, and those are the highlights for sure. Or even just like a 2-hour phone call or whatever is
Yeah.
better than.
Like this. This is the best. Like
Yeah.
seriously. So Danny, thank you very much for coming by. I want to save a little bit more in the tank to have you back on the show at some point. But
Mhm.
everybody out there, Danny is a great, wonderful person who is on the social media and he is on Instagram. Where can people find you on Instagram? What is your Instagram handle? What do you prefer to be reached out to? What is you know wh-
Yeah.
what isn't what isn't crossing the line yet at the same time showing support?
Yeah, so Instagram is Danny Smith X, DANNYSMITHX. And I see in the comments, Amanda Adams says, "Are you going to Kara for your art?" And Kara is I guess, a new app for artists. Um, and 2 of my artist friends within the last 24 hours have sent me messages saying, "Dude, get on this app." And I think it's like Instagram just for artists. So I'm going to look into that and check that out, but I don't have a spot there yet. So right now the best place is Instagram, or you can check out my art website at dannysmithart.com. And I'm always uploading pieces there, and free shipping. I just send them out, and I take commissions. Like, I just did 12 commissions last month, including people's pets. Like, I'm doing dogs and different things. Shout out to AJ, you know who you are. He had to wait so long for these dog portraits of his pets that I did, because I was doing this Banksy show and the Hotel Victoria show and Budweiser, painting all the musicians that are coming to Budweiser stage. I kept having to postpone his commissions.
Mm,
So I sent him a stack of 10 or 11 Big Wolf script pages
that's
where
cool.
I had doodled on the back. Like, I'd be in my dressing room drawing on set, or drawing in my dressing room. And I was like, "Dude, this is something. Thank you for your patience." And he sent me a picture. He framed one of those pages, and it made me so happy, because I would have those drawings or I had them just sitting in portfolios in my drawers. But now one of them is framed up on his wall and is being appreciated, and so it has a new life. So that was super cool. So thank you, AJ. You're the man. And he sent me some nice gifts too. And yeah, so I'm here for commissions, Danny Smith Art, Instagram, come say hi. And thank you so much, Ryan, for chatting and finally meeting,
Yeah.
and we'll do it again for sure.
And in the spirit of the fact that we just go off on tangents all the time, I
Yeah.
really realized I wanted to bring something up. Um, Movies, you're mentioning we're mentioning music. In Toronto, it was last year, and my co-host of another show I do called the Rockman Power Hour, where we have like
Yeah.
a lot of amazing musicians on, and people from pop culture and all sorts of walks of life. We were on our way to an art convention, not to work, but just to go hang out. And we stopped by a vinyl store, and they say one man's junk is another man's treasure. So for something that I'll bring up why I'm bringing this up, but to you who has just something laying around, to somebody else who is a fan of Big Wolf, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, here's this thing that fell off something and it's half broken and whatever." And I could put it in a garbage bag, but that somebody else will put that on a shelf and be like, "Oh my God,
Yeah.
this is the thing." I was in a vinyl store and they had like a $2 vinyl of the soundtrack of Eddie and the Cruisers, and dropped
Yeah.
I dropped my bag. I was like, "What? Oh my
Yeah.
God, Eddie and the Cruisers," and it's in the dollar bin. So to everybody else in that store, they're like, "Oh, this piece of shit." To me, I'm like, it's one of my prized possessions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like when I lived in LA, there's an artist, Mr. Brainwash, who's sort of Banksy adjacent.
Yeah.
If you guys know the film Exit Through the Gift Shop, Banksy made it
Oh yeah.
about
Yeah.
Mr. Brainwash.
Okay.
So when I lived in LA, I used to do street art and run around and take photos of all these, pieces that other artists would do before
Yeah.
we even knew who they were. So I have pictures of me on rooftops with like Banksy's behind me and Mr. Brainwash. And I would see like a new Brainwash piece go up, and there would be the caps from the spray paint like on the ground, just discarded. And I was like, dude, and I would scoop them up. And I still have a bunch of them on a Ziploc bag. Like they're all mixed together now. I don't know whose is whose, but that's trash to them, but it's my treasure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. It's amazing how that works. And speaking of like script pages or whatever, even if it's photocopy, people love that stuff, and it's such an interesting autograph to kind of give people. And it's somewhere someone, for the student bodies reunion, we had reprinted some of the student bodies magazines that people could like buy.
Oh,
And really, student bodies is like 3 pages because it's a bunch of high schoolers just doing something, and all the paragraphs were just bullshit. Like
yeah,
just
yeah.
words for the sake of words, but it was fascinating. Sometime if you were ever to and Jamie actually mentioned to me he had some old student body stuff he wanted to possibly maybe put on the internet. You never know.
Yeah.
But I think that you, Mick Perlis, and Jamie, and at least somebody else from one of the other shows that's musically inclined should do a cover night of some kind of
Yeah.
people who are in 90s bands, but you're like playing Beatles songs or something, ironically, because
yeah.
they're teen sensations.
Yeah.
But
well, Jamie and I have spent literally, and this sounds hyperbolic, but it probably was a million hours jamming together. And in fact, one of the first things I bought when I started Big Wolf was a piano, and that's at his place in LA right now as we speak.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, Jamie and I, countless hours, just guitar and piano, guitar and singing. We both love to jam. We've jammed with other people up in the hills in Hollywood with like producers that he was friendly with, having these beautiful places to jam and then little bars. And Jamie's played all over LA, and he's played on big people's records, and he's supremely talented. Like he's
so talented.
He honestly, he's like absolute A-level professional piano player.
Yeah.
And has played at huge parties with massive celebrities and a great singer and a hilarious dude. And we got to reconnect soon for sure. Jamie, if you're watching, I love you for sure. So
I'll make them watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jamie has this great series, everybody, called Year Life Crisis on YouTube, and we did this special during the pandemic that we had to shoot, so they couldn't do their stage shows. So Melissa and I shot this entire thing, all these skits, all these things, and these musical numbers, and they played Hallelujah. And his co-host Ellie is also a great guitar player and a great singer, and it's just what he does with one piano, how he fills an entire room. It's like he has 16 hands.
Yes.
Like, it's insane. And the voice of an angel. Like
there were nights in LA where he'd play at a piano and John C. Reilly would come in and grab a glass as a tip jar and go around going, give this guy tips. He's amazing, And he'd sit on a stool next to Elman and they would sing. And people love him. He's played with great people.
I've known Jamie 8 years. He's never said that story once, which goes to show maybe that's why he's always the piano player welcome at these parties. Because he's like that. He's like that guy in Eyes Wide Shut who's blindfolded. He gets it. Like, just don't talk about it.
He's the Nick Nightingale. I know. I feel maybe I'm telling tales out of school, but he's got a lot of stories like that, and he's played on musicians' albums who maybe I won't say here, but they're super famous, and you know them for sure.
Man.
He actually played on our first album too, my band, The City Drive. He played on our first album too because he's a buddy.
I'm glad you brought that up. I want to make sure I give this shout out to Michael Krusty, who is a very amazing video editor. He's done some great stuff. In fact, he's actually edited together these Jason Rockman and I also have done this on our own without knowing that they're doing it or whatever, but years ago during the pandemic, we got people together, like people from Jane's Addiction and Run DMC, to like sing on these covers. And
Wow.
Jason used to play in a band called Slaves on Dope, and Kevin from Slaves on Dope mixed the whole thing. It was amazing. But that all being said, Michael does these covers with this guy named Mikey and his Uke. I think that's what his YouTube page is called. And they do these amazing Ramones covers. And they got people from Melancholy and Pennywise and all these people playing on these songs. So Michael's legit an amazing dude, but he's also a very talented guy that gets shit done. And he mentioned something to me that I wanted to bring up to you. Sorry for all the paraphrasing, but I I like putting things into context when it's on the internet.
Yeah.
Let's see, I'm just making sure he's coming up here. But anyway, as I'm looking for this, and this will be my last question of the night.
I know. Sorry to.
No. This is me. I'm trying to sign off, but I like talking to you so much that I don't want this to end. I have to go back to terrible real life afterwards. It's like this is a blast. Who was your Merton Dingle? We all know, everyone watching, they're like, okay, that was the guy on television. That's the guy that made me say, hey, being cool, being different is cool. Who was the teenage character, or at least a 25-year-old playing a teenage character, when you were a young, upcoming kid who needed to see something to, make them feel a certain way? Who was your Merton Dingle when you were a teenager?
I mean, I don't know if he's an exact, surrogate for Merton Dingle, but Marty McFly from Back to the Future was the man to me when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And still as an adult. Like, Back to the Future is one of the best films ever. Marty McFly, I wanted to be him. He played guitar like I was aspiring to play. He rode a skateboard. Like, I related to a lot of those things. And he was just, I had loved Family Ties growing up. And then when he's in this movie Back to the Future, it blew me away. So he was someone I thought was like really cool when I was a kid.
That's awesome. Okay, and perfect timing as always. We should jam sometime. It seems like we're in sync when it comes to timing.
100%. 100%.
I found it exactly. All right. Michael Crusty says, Ryan, almost 25 years ago, I was an assistant engineer in a studio in Toronto, and Danny recorded an album he wrote there. It was very reminiscent of Weezer and Pavement.
Yeah. What's his name?
Michael Crusty. I don't know what his real last name is. I'm assuming his birth name is not Michael Crusty, but it is Michael. And he said he was an assistant engineer.
I'm thinking of two guys. I'm thinking of Inam, if he knows Inam Hawk, and that is crazy. It would have been at Cherry Beach Sound after season 1 of Big Wolf. Peter Knight came up from LA. We went into the recording studio because I was writing all these songs in my trailer, right, during the first season. And then I was like, dude, I've always wanted to make an album. So Peter and I went into the studio. He funded half the album. I recorded like 15 songs. And because of that album, one of the producers on Big Wolf, Abby Charette, who's an awesome woman, I love her so much. Her husband was a music lawyer, Scott Bradford, who I also love. They're like an awesome, exemplary couple, super cool people. And he got it to a publisher, and I got a publishing deal with Sony because of that album that this guy's talking about, probably. And the publisher said, hey, finish Big Wolf, finish season 2, 3, however long it goes, then move to LA, start a band, and let's get a record deal. So Big Wolf ended season 3. I moved to LA. I started a band. Our 4th show was at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas.
Damn.
And all the labels were there, and we went back to LA. We showcased for all the labels, and we signed with Sony Records. Like, it was our 4th show, and we signed with Sony Records. And then I went off and had that adventure for many, 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 many years, like touring and playing with Aerosmith and Warped Tours with Sum 41. And that's a whole other podcast. It's a whole other life, a whole other podcast. Playing with Fleetwood Mac and Joan Jett and AFI and,
I love AFI. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What
Fall
era?
Out Boy, like Pete Wentz was friendly with our band,
Yeah.
and he came to see us 100 times, and he wanted to sign us, but we were signing to Sony, so we signed this band called Panic at the Disco instead.
Yeah.
and they took off, and we were always like, dang, that could have been us. Like, there's
Oh,
a million
wow.
stories, a million stories. We'll talk next time about it.
Jesus Christ, Danny, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
Oh my God, even just but the caliber of thing. I opened up for or played with Fall Out Boy and Fleetwood Mac. That is like two
yeah,
different ends of the spectrum of
yeah,
how the hell you're
yeah,
like you're like the Kevin Bacon of music. Like what the hell?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's true.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I haven't thought about in a long time, but they're afoot in all these random worlds, you know?
Well, it's a good thing that you didn't do all these things blindingly drunk because you can remember doing it all.
Well,
Well, no, no, okay. Like this thing, my band. I was in a band, The Real Deal. We toured Japan and Australia. When people are like, "What was it like?" I'm like, "Well,
I know, I know, I
yeah,
know.
yeah." I'm like,
It
I
was,
remember, I remember things. I remember when things would go wrong than when they would go right because there's more of a physical memory alerting you to things. When things go
oh
well,
yeah,
it's almost like a nice smooth dream. When things are terrible, you are more alert than you've ever been in your life.
oh yeah. Like taking
Yeah.
a base head in the teeth live, like getting knocked down from that. A
Oh,
wall of speakers falling. Like, yeah, the mistakes you definitely remember. But it's a nonstop party, right? Like, it is a blur. Like, you're just, there are no rules when you're in a band. It's like, do whatever you want, go nuts, have fun.
yeah.
And I mean, that's my life motto. Have a good time all the time.
Considering we are talking just about we're finishing up, but we're talking like
Yeah,
I definitely just want to mention to everybody out there. You mentioned Fall Out Boy. Well,
yeah.
also on their record label, their old record label, I believe it was called Ramen, Powered by Ramen. They were on this
Fueled
record,
by ramen.
Fueled by Ramen, run by Vinny from Less Than Jake. Chris from Less Than Jake and Chris Fafalius on this great band called Punchline. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to play with them,
Mm-mm.
but Punchline, they're an amazing band. They have a podcast called Krista Makes a Podcast, and they talk to people from all walks of life, like a newer acts like Des Rocks, who's great, but also to Mark Hoppus about writing the songs that made them famous or writing songs that mattered a lot. Mark Hoppus tells a story about how he wrote What's My Age Again in his tiny kitchen when he
Yeah.
was trying to figure out how to play JAR by Green Day and messing it up. And that's how he wrote the intro on guitar.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
little things like that. If you love music,
Yes.
and of course, I have to plug my own podcast, Rockman Power Hour, in which this week, well, in 2 days, an amazing interview we did with Frank Turner is going to come out. Last week was Buzz from the Melvins. The week before that was John Garcia from a band called Caius, and a week before that was we had a nice hot streak. We had a Bill from Mastodon. So we've
Wow.
like Rockman's got all this cool stuff. He's got the Nick Cage stories. I'm just
Yeah.
my world is the 90s Canadian. This is my world, and
Yeah,
it's
no, I
about
like the Rockman stuff too. I've checked all that out too, and
oh,
it's
thank you,
very,
man.
very, very. I was very impressed.
Oh,
I was
thank
like,
you.
wow, how did they get these guys? Yeah, very,
Well,
very cool.
Rockman is Rockman, and that
Yeah,
one of those cool things like I'm Batman. It's
yeah,
pretty much like I'm Rockman. It gets things done.
yeah,
Danny, this has been great. Thank you for allowing me to tell the audience. It's been a minute, so I'm just telling everybody this is why like there's not episodes every day. It's like other things are being done, and you got to come back and visit it and fall in love all over again. And I'm in love with the audience. So I think this is great. This is a combination of people all come together because we all love that time and all celebrating. And we're celebrating you, dude, and your
yeah.
astounding accomplishments. Like what?
Oh, back at you. You've done great things too. And shout out to the chat. Thank you so much for being a part of this. It was fun. And I'll go back later and read the comments and
Yeah,
all that.
the Fleetwood Mac thing is still and Fall Out Boy is still blowing my mind. And now I'm also processing the Nick Cage thing, and now I'm also processing the Mark Wahlberg thing. Like, Danny,
Oh,
you've
there's
lived.
so much, man. Next time we'll get into the Leonardo DiCaprio thing, the Gwen Stefani thing, the Will Ferrell thing,
Whoa,
yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot
that
of good ones.
It's not even that I'm a that much of a star effer or whatever. It just I love those stories that make you think like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
And it just you feel like you're a high functioning Forrest Gump in your own life.
Yeah.
You're like, how did we get here? Danny,
Yeah.
you're endlessly fascinating. I'm so glad that your art's kicking so much ass.
Oh, thanks, man.
And that music and acting and all this stuff, it's little parts of you that create this portrait in a way that is just baffling. I hope you write a book someday because I would really like to hear about all these stories in detail, not just online. But anyway, thank you all for the chat, for watching. Danny and I are going to say our goodbyes when we go offline. But once again, Danny Smith X on Instagram. And the website again is
DannySmithArt.com. Yeah.
art.com. Support him, ladies and gentlemen. You loved him back then. You love him now. Let's love him in the future. And let's make his art shine. Have a good night, everybody. Good luck. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Cheers.